Thank you everyone for coming this evening. I'm going to call this meeting of the Bloomington Environmental Commission to order, March 18th, 2021. It is 6:04 p.m. We'll start with roll call. Starting just going alphabetically. Sam Armstrong.
Here.
Matt Caldy.
Here.
Meredith Dickerson. Don Eggert.
Here.
Daniel Gonzalez.
Here.
Myself, I am here. Mike Litwin.
Present.
Thank you. Dave Parkhurst. Scott Shackelford. Daniel Whitney. All right, a quorum is met. We can move on with our additional business.
Maybe perhaps we could have our new members give a little more about themselves than just their names.
Yes, I was going to move on next to introductions. So if we could, I'll start, and then we'll move on through the commission members that have been around a bit longer, and then the new ones will allow them to introduce themselves. My name is Andrew Gunther. I'm the chair of the commission. I've been on this commission since 2018. I've been chair since 2019. Previously, I served on the Monroe County Environmental Commission, as well as another commission with HAND, the department. I am currently in the process of applying to grad school. And then I am a graduate of the O'Neill School with a bachelor's in public affairs. That's about it for me. We'll move on to Matt Caldy.
Matt Caldy, been a commissioner going on 4 years now, just a concerned citizen.
Perfect. Don?
I'm Don Eggert, retired geologist. This is starting my third year.
Mike?
Mike Litwin. I'm a retired biologist with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and I've been on the Environmental Commission for the far side of 20 years.
Mike's definitely, I think the last time I spoke to the city council, Mike, Dave Rollo recognized your name when I read off the current commissioners, and he said he'd wager you're the longest serving commissioner in the entire city.
No doubt. He was on the commission with me many years ago.
Moving on to Linda.
I'm Linda Thompson. I'm a senior environmental planner in the Planning and Transportation Department, and also the liaison to the Environmental Commission. I just 3 days ago had my 17th anniversary for working for the city, which is kind of amazing. And I was on the EC for 2 years before that. So I've known Mike this whole time.
Excellent. Moving on to Daniel, if you don't mind introducing yourself to the group.
Yeah, my name's Daniel Gonzalez. I'm a first-year Masters of Public Affairs student at the O'Neill School studying environmental policy. Probably a 7th-month resident of Bloomington so far, and it's been great.
Welcome to the commission. Sam, how about you? Next.
Hey guys, I'm Sam. I am 28. I've been in Bloomington since 2011. I originally moved here to go to IU. Now I'm back as a returning student, finishing my undergrad as environmental and sustainability studies. I have a lot of experience doing environmental field work over the past 5 years or so. I've worked for Ecologic for a few years, and I currently work for a smaller restoration firm in the city. And I'm just passionate about all things environmental.
Welcome to the commission. We really appreciate you expressing interest in joining. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm making sure there's no one I miss. Going down the list here. Oh,
There's Scott.
Scott's joined us, yes. So Scott, if you wanted to introduce yourself to the commission, we have some new members. But I see you have your camera. And
sure. Yeah, no, sorry about that. Sorry, we're actually just almost getting home here from a bit of a road trip. But yeah, hello everybody. It's good to see you. Sorry I can't turn the video on right now, but I'm Scott Shackelford. I'm a professor at IU and the director of the Ostrom Workshop. And in previous life was an environmental attorney, and have really been passionate about sustainability, particularly sustainability law and policy for some time now. And also a brand new member of the commission. So thanks again for having me.
Thank you, Scott. All right, so then we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is approval of the minutes. Ben, our wonderful EC intern, sent out the February meeting minutes and got the edits and then sent out the final draft. Were there any final amendments or changes to the minutes that anyone had to offer before we vote on them? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of February 2021.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We'll go down on a roll call vote, starting with Sam Armstrong.
I will abstain on that one since I wasn't at the first meeting.
Very prudent of you. Matt Caldy,
Yes.
Don Eggert,
Approve.
Daniel Gonzalez.
Abstain as well, I guess.
I vote yes. Mike Litwin
Yes.
and Scott Shackelford.
Yes.
Wonderful. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 to 0 to 2. It passes. Thank you all. The minutes are approved. We'll move on to public comment. Public comment, there's a limit of 5 minutes per person, 20 minutes total set aside for this section. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak this evening? They can either raise their hand using the Zoom chat function that says raise hand at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, or you can send a message in the chat to Ben Sheriff, who is our host this evening. Give it a minute before, just so we have enough time in case someone's rushing to the phone right now to press the raise hand button. Seeing anyone, Ben?
Nope, no one tonight.
All right. Public comment then is closed. We'll move on to our next order of business. Presentations. Unfortunately, both of our presenters had to reschedule from this evening's meeting. They will instead present in April. Sorry for the late notice. We just found out about that yesterday, I believe. So we will have them, both Hugh Kramer and Councilman Matt Flaherty, present at our April meeting instead. This meeting will probably run a bit shorter then, because as you can see, we allotted roughly 45 minutes total for the presentation plus questions. So this may be a bit shorter of a meeting, but hopefully we'll get a lot done still just the same. Moving on to our next order of business, our reports from our various commissions, starting with our tree commission. Is there a report from Tree Commission this evening?
That would have been Dave.
That would have been Dave, and Dave's not here, which is a very rare thing that I am not familiar with. All right, so then moving on to the Monroe County Environmental Commission. Again, the Monroe County Environmental Commission has been on and off with posting their agenda, and they don't get recorded by CATS for some reason. So I haven't had a chance to catch up on them besides reading the agenda. I haven't been able to attend a meeting. I do have the agenda in front of me now. They spoke with Kelsey Thetonia, the MS4 coordinator for Monroe County. She used to be the MS4 coordinator for the city. So I presume they were talking about stormwater and other climate change mitigation efforts through flooding mitigation, like she has spoken to with us about. And then they talked about recording their meetings for CATS. And that was about it for their meeting for this month. Are there any questions on the Monroe County Environmental Commission report? Seeing none, we'll move on to the Bloomington Commission on Sustainability. Does the Bloomington Commission on Sustainability have a report this month?
I was not able to observe it this last Tuesday.
Okay, perfect. I would recommend then, if you could, just if you get a hold of, when you get a hold of their minutes, if you'll just email them to the commission. Appreciate that.
I will. I'll email last month's too.
Thank you, Don. Moving on to ERAC, which would also be Dave. So we'll move on to the Metropolitan Planning Organization Citizens Advisory Committee. I'm actually going to start. I had a prior engagement that was ongoing during the time that they normally meet. That engagement ended this month, so I will be able to start attending those meetings in person, not in person, but via Zoom, starting next month. So I'll start being able to give reports more in detail. But as I've said the last couple meetings, they send out their agenda for the month about 2 days after we have our commission meetings. So I will send out that agenda to you all once I get a hold of it. And then starting next month, I'll actually be able to present a report on what they've done, since I will have been able to attend the meeting myself. But I will send out that agenda when I get a hold of it. Any questions for the MPO Citizens Advisory Committee? Seeing none, Friends of Lake Monroe would also be Dave. So we'll move on to MC Iris. Does MC Iris have a report for this month?
You're muted, Don. Don, you're muted.
I hear a cat.
Fine.
They MC Iris met as usual. The seasonal weed labs were discussed that were held. Let's see. The upcoming weed lab will be on April 29th. We've again the winter creeper, the control sheet available for the winter creeper removal. Scrolling down the rather lengthy minutes. The Restore grant, 18 sites were visited. The first Saturdays with in the park activities have begun on the beginning of the month at Griffey, and will continue through the end of the warm season. Public Works Southeast Park continues to be successful, and we are now starting a similar activity at Lower Cascades that begins the last Friday of this month. And Juneteenth is a little bit up in air activity there. The Deem Wilderness activity is going to be starting up. Let's see, May 1st or April 24th. First day, May 1st, May 8th. And again, there's going to be some restrictions as to we can provide information as far as registration. But again, the numbers has to be limited because of both National Forest Service regulations as well as COVID protocols. I brought up the idea for members to, maybe Linda did as well, as far as looking at the carbon emission reduction draft and making comment. Let's see, I think that's pretty much it. So that's pretty much the summation of the MC Iris. But we must again, really I'm impressed by how much we've gotten accomplished at Southeast Park. And if things go as well in Cascades, this may become a real asset, and I think an asset for our wildlife connectivity project. So that's all I have to say for that.
Anyone have any questions for Don on the MC Iris report?
Forgot to mention Earth Day, which is going to be the multi-city agency participation. And Linda, are you going to be participating too, or on the
Yes.
Earth Day thing?
Yes, I
Okay.
will.
So we'll have a presence. We will have a presence at the activity in Southeast Park, and again, multiple county agencies as well, excuse me, as well as utility department and adopt a storm drain, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it looks like a nice program.
So I might as well hop in here and piggyback on what you were saying, Don. I was going to talk about this during announcements, but my role there will be to present the connectivity plan. And I will be doing that in partnership with the HAND department, because they are giving grants this year for removing invasives and planting natives. And so we will be kind of tag teaming together on 2 different programs.
Wonderful.
I'll also probably need to point out that HAND is also helping MC Iris. We are going to be distributing initially in Sycamore Knolls and then the adjoining area around the Southeast Park information pamphlets on how winter creeper. So they're the HAND is in the process of getting them ready to go, and we'll, as soon as they're available, we'll start distributing them.
Thank you, Don. Any questions for MC Iris or Linda about that? Seeing none, we'll move on to our working groups. This is an A-cycle month, which means the only working group we have to discuss are ECPC and the Planning Commission. Linda, do you have anything to report this month?
I do just real quickly. There's only one case, and it is the Wingate Inn Motel on North Walnut Street. And they will be converting a motel into a 3-story residential structure with 35 dwelling units. So there won't be much of anything for us to do because they're using the same building. And there will be a little bit of remodeling, but they're using the same rooms and everything. So probably the most we will do is look at their landscaping, and they will not have to come into full compliance since they're not changing the parking lot or anything. But basically we'll just make sure that they have no invasive species and that every available space for landscaping will be filled with landscaping. So I'm sorry that was such a small little report on a fairly unexciting environmentally related topic, but that's all I've got.
Thank you, Linda. On a separate note, from an environmental viewpoint, I just find it interesting how many hotels in that strip are being bought up and remade into student and multifamily housing. That's the 2nd or 3rd hotel or motel that's gone down in the past year or so. For something else. There's building something right next to the Wingate Hotel. I just drove past it the other day, and I said, "Oh, look, they're finally building that development." And I was like, "Oh, I wonder what they're going to do with the motel next to it, because now it looks so small." I guess we know now they're going to make it into 3-story residential housing. Interesting. Okay.
Well,
Um,
that will, once it's passed, that will be a student zoning area.
Oh, okay. That
So
makes,
that's the reason.
well, they're not wasting any time. I can say that. So we also have a small update. The McDowell property, which is the warehouse property on East Hillside, not East, Hillside Drive. I can't remember the direction it is. Next to Switchyard Park. The City Council Land Use Committee continued it to another hearing that'll be held on the 24th of March at 5:30 p.m. They had some questions about the environmental features, as well as all the public comment that night was against that petition. So they have some things to reconsider and some questions they wanted to ask. So they'll rehear it next Wednesday, and then it'll likely go to the full council for debate and potential passage. The Environmental Commission issued a memo that was pretty strongly against that petition because they limit green space beyond what the UDO says they are allowed to, or what they should be allowed to. But since it's a PUD, they're allowed to set their own standards as much as they possibly can through approval from the Planning Commission and the City Council. And they're pushing for 80% impervious surface when the limit normally would be 60% if it weren't a PUD. So we're trying to get them to commit to more green space, or at least some environmentally beneficial program or attribute in the building, so that we can justify the limitation of green space in that area. We will continue to speak. I'll continue to speak against that on behalf of the commission. We'll see I'll keep you updated on what happens in front of the Land Use Committee. The Land Use Committee members, I find, are the most respondent members to concerns from the EC. So I'm hopeful that they will be able to try to convince their fellow council members to not support the project. But I'll keep you updated on its progress as it goes through the full council. Any questions for Linda or I on the Planning Commission or planning in general? Seeing none. Yeah.
Is there any way that they could add any, say, solar or green roofing or anything like that?
The petitioner has agreed to build some of the buildings to LEED Silver standards. They won't all be LEED certified, but some of them will. So some of the buildings will have some green features.
Okay, good.
Is there any in Bloomington? Is there any regulations regarding space for dumpsters? Like, for example, like back in where I worked in the Highland Park, Illinois, they now have to have enough space for a dumpster and a dumpster recycling bin. Is that anything that's in Bloomington?
Yes. They have to have the space. They are not required to actually provide recycling. But you know, if they don't leave enough space, they'll never be able to do that in the future.
Any further questions for Linda or myself? Seeing none, move on to old business. Our first item of old business is the Herald Times Space column. So for the new commission members, what we normally do with the EC is we do an outreach component where we'll table various events, we'll attend various events and represent the city. My cat is climbing up on me. Get down. And then we will, sorry about that. And then we'll represent the city, we'll go to various events so that we can get the EC name out there, we can spread environmental and sustainability awareness, get people interested in various programs the city has to offer. Due to COVID, we obviously haven't been able to do this in a safe way. We normally have been attending multiple events by now in the year, either volunteering or tabling or representing the city. So what we've been doing is we've been submitting columns to the Herald Times, guest columns in the attempt to bring attention to various areas of environmental importance. We've done them on density. We've done them on water quality, on tree protection. And now this one I've written is on green space protection, in reference to some development concerns that I just went over that we've had with impervious surface and density. Trying to protect green space as much as possible, because once you lose green space, it's very, very hard to gain it back. And as Bloomington is a growing city, it's important now as we develop to be very conscientious about how we limit green space and how we provide it in certain areas, so that we do so both for the sake of the environment and for the sake of environmental justice, to make sure that everyone in our city does have access to green space and have access to natural, clean areas to live and breathe and work and play. So I sent out that column as the final draft. After I sent out the final draft, Linda sent me some additional edits, but they were just word use and grammar and syntax. So nothing substantial to change in the column. Everyone has had a chance to see the column, so I would entertain a motion to approve it, unless anybody has any significant changes or amendments to offer at this point in time to that column.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any, I just want to make sure that we give everyone a chance, if anyone had anything they wanted to add or change in there before we go through the roll call. Seeing none, we'll go through the roll. Sam Armstrong.
I'll abstain.
Matt Caldy.
Approve.
Don Egger.
Approve.
Daniel Gonzalez.
Abstain.
I vote approve. Mike Litwin.
Yes.
Scott Shackelford.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. It is 5-0 to 2. It passes. Thank you. I'll submit that to the HT tonight. Usually they take about a month or so to run after they're submitted. Once I see it has been printed, I'll send it out to all you so you have a chance to look at it. And if you so choose, we appreciate when people share it amongst their friend groups or whatnot have you, just so it gets out there and circulates a bit more. Moving on from that, we'll move on to our update on the connectivity plan by Ben and or Linda. Is there an update on the connectivity plan this month?
Yes, there is. So hopefully by now, at least some of you have taken a look at the habitat connectivity work that I've done over the last few months. But for people that obviously there are some new commissioners, so I'll explain a little bit about what I've been doing. So I created a brochure, an interactive map, and a pledge for people to sign in different areas that I want to connect of high quality green space. So there's a high quality green space area up near Griffey Lake, and one in the southwest corner of Bloomington, and also in the southeast corner of Bloomington. And I'm trying to convince homeowners and other businesses and neighborhood associations to sign up for this plan to essentially commit to dedicating a certain amount of land or habitat where that they're either going to protect or plant new pollinator species or native species on, so that it can be like a corridor for different animals and pollinators to be able to have as like a safe haven essentially throughout these 3 high quality green space areas. So that's kind of what I've been working on the past few months. I'm still awaiting some edits from the biodiversity working group, but I think we'll probably address that next month. But me and Linda have discussed a few of the next steps that we plan on. So that includes kind of taking a step back from the work that I've been doing. The Bloomington Habitat Connectivity Plan was created in 2017 and was meant to work on 5 major components of green space essentially in Bloomington. So these include the following: conserve habitat before and after development, prioritize the habitat potential and permanent connectivity of an area when making land use decisions, connect isolated areas of habitat by producing green space corridors, enhance habitat quality of stable areas and encourage citizen involvement in habitat restoration. Sorry, someone's coming in. Oh, Dave's here. Linda and I have discussed editing these sections in the habitat connectivity plan and kind of creating an updated version. Going into more detail in these sections as well as discussing the progress already made over the past 4 years. So this means certain events or department work that has been done to promote all of these sections. We also hope to create a section establishing actual ideas on how to make more progress in these goals. So for example, the work that I've done in recent months on the brochure and the pledge and the map that I've created would most likely go in section number 3, as discussed previously, connecting isolated areas of habitat by producing green space corridors, which is the number 3 component of the habitat connectivity plan. So that's what me and Linda have discussed as of late. So if the EC has any ideas or comments on this, I'd love to hear it. I'm sure Linda would as well. But we'll keep you all updated on this document's progress in the next few weeks and months. I've made recent edits on it, but I don't have a scanner here, and I'm waiting for my father to go into his office so I can go in as well and scan them over to Linda, which will hopefully happen sooner rather than later. But unfortunately, at the moment, he's still working from home and his office is kind of far away. So I'm still unclear when he's planning on doing that. But hopefully in either the end of the week or next week is the plan, to scan that over to Linda and she'll give me an idea of what she thinks of my edits. That's all I have.
I'd like to really again point out that I think that the joint work between MC Iris and the Parks Department and hopefully now additional neighborhood associations. I have a question. Has the Sycamore Knolls Neighborhood Association responded? Because the head of it lives down the street from me, and I can go knock on his door or send him an email to build a fire under him.
So by taking a step back and editing the habitat connectivity plan that we already have, we've decided to wait until we've updated that document before we actually send out the pledge and the brochure and the map to different neighborhood associations. So hopefully that will happen around the spring is my guess, but maybe Linda has a different idea of when the timetable, but I'm unsure.
No, I think Ben is correct. So he hasn't, oh, pardon me. Your neighbor hasn't been contacted yet, Don.
Oh, okay.
Ben, I hadn't thought of this before, but is any of the land that's involved in this connectivity issue in this particular location, is any of it public land or is it all private? Or do we know that?
It's pretty much all private land.
If I may raise a question, and I think you're saying a little bit ago, Linda, were you saying that to supplement this connectivity program, there is a grant program for replacing invasives with native plants?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The EC's had the connectivity plan on their radar for quite a while, and the HAND department, which stands for Housing and Neighborhood Development, they have a grant program for neighborhoods, and they have expanded that to include being able to remove invasives and plant natives.
That's great.
I still think the connectivity plan is another opportunity for a future column on connectivity, where we could send it so that it times so that it coincides with when the program actually starts getting off the ground. And then we can direct people through the column if they're interested in participating to either do that, or they can apply for the grants from HAND. Give them those options in writing in the newspaper so that they're more easily, because the people who most commonly I find read the Herald Times are people who tend to be a little bit older and thus they're more likely to own property in the city. So I would find that it would be more likely that we'd reach out to people who would actually be able to participate in the program through that channel, as opposed to through Facebook or something similar. So I think that's another idea for a future column that we could do in the future. When do we have an anticipated date for when we anticipate having the program actually start rolling out with contacting people and that sort of thing?
We don't have an actual date, except that we want to make it, we want it to be done by August for our anniversary.
Okay.
Kind of, could I add a thought on this? As far as the Herald Times goes, it seems that their Saturday or whatever day of the week, Saturday or Sunday, when they have their home edition thing, that might be more than potential for maybe more of a longer piece than a guest column. Since Jillian from the MC Iris was formerly worked for the large for connections with the paper, but that would allow more space and actual potential to, let's say, have maybe something like Ben's map at a reasonable scale as part of a longer article.
I wouldn't know about that. Because I've only gone through the official guest column process, so I don't know how to arrange for longer pieces in the Herald Times. If you have experience with that, you can send me an email information.
I'm going to be meeting with Jillian Saturday again, and I'll bring it up with her and see what she thinks, because she just recently had an article in that section of the paper, and it seems like they've had some pretty weird things unrelated to Bloomington in there, including the history of coal, which was actually a very, very interesting piece from my background. It made me think, it's been getting me to think about where another potential outlet for us.
Okay. Well, once you get that information, send it to me in an email and I'll look into it a bit further. Because
Okay.
if we can do something like that, that'd be something worthwhile doing, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Don. Any other questions on the connectivity plan for Ben or Linda? Oh, Matt, yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious if, I believe that I'm in one of the neighborhoods that's listed there and there is no neighborhood association or anything. It made me wonder if there was a strategy for neighborhoods that don't, that don't have any such organization.
Question.
Me and Linda haven't discussed that, but we would love to hear ideas if you have any.
It doesn't matter if there isn't a neighborhood association or a homeowners association. It's just that we were going to reach out to the leaders of those so they could distribute the information, because we couldn't conceivably send an email to all of the individual people.
Mm-hmm.
But I think maybe what Matt was asking was, do you have a strategy in mind to target those individual people, since you can't just have someone else send a mass email out? Are there going to be postcards sent out or something similar, or to target the individual houses that don't have an HOA to send emails to them from you?
I don't think that's been determined. Talk about it, EC. See, what do you think?
I think a lot of that answer depends on funding, first of all, as well as what we are and aren't permitted to do by the city in terms of contacting citizens.
Well, we'll have to look into it.
I mean, if as a private citizen, someone wanted to go door to door a little bit, there wouldn't be anything against that, right? It would just be a matter of what time and energy people had and were willing to commit.
I think that's correct.
Correct, yeah. So if we hypothetically wanted the EC to, because I know we have a small budget, if we wanted to get like door hangers or something printed for those houses that we don't have an email address for an HOA, maybe that's something that the EC members could volunteer to do on their own time. But that's something I think we should discuss with the city, specifically planning and transportation, or just planning now, on their thoughts as to what they would prefer we do and do not do.
We also, the EC is going to have to think about their meager budget because we may have to spend some of that money on the anniversary party.
Yes. Do we know how much we currently have on hand, Linda? Guesstimation?
Generally, we have about gosh, it's been, I'm guessing about $1,200 because I don't just have it in my mind off the top of my head. But that's how much we have appropriated. That doesn't necessarily mean that's how much is in the bank to spend.
Okay. Yeah, I would love to hold on to as much of that as possible for the eventuality of our anniversary, plus whatever our basic operations, name tags, that sort of thing for members. Okay. So that'll be something I would want us to talk to the people we need to talk to, and then come back maybe next meeting and discuss a little bit further potential ways of advertising that plan effectively. Do we have any further comments or questions on the connectivity plan? Seeing none, we'll move on to our item of new business, which is the Bloomington Environmental Quality Indicators and the Bloomington Environmental Action Plan update process. Linda, do you have a presentation for us?
Well, I do. I'm going to just describe them basically. In the beginning of the year, the EC has a meeting to determine what main project they want to work on for that year. We have working groups that work on smaller projects. Needless to say that we haven't done much of that this past year, but the main thing that was chosen to work on was updating a document called the Bloomington Environmental Quality Indicators. Now, in the ordinance that formed us, we are required to, so to speak, keep track of the quality of the environment in Bloomington and to periodically report on that. So, let's see, the very first one was that I have in my possession is from 1994. And it looks like this. It basically goes through a set of indices and what it talks about the population and growth and energy and water consumption, solid waste management. In this one, it talked about PCBs because that was a very big issue in the past. Soil erosion and siltation, water resources, wildlife, and the natural areas. And so it has been updated periodically, 94, 97, 2001. And lately, the last time it was updated was just updated digitally, and not all of the sectors were in fact updated. So it's really time for us to do that again. So that was what was chosen for the main project this year. So what we need to discuss is, do we want to put together a document like this, or do we want to do it all digital like we did last time? And do we want to try to do it all at once, or do we want to take it sector by sector like we tried to do before? So those are the kind of things we need to discuss and decide regarding the Becky. Now, the project that came in number 2 was updating the BEEP. That is the Bloomington Environmental Action Plan. Is this backwards for you guys?
Nope.
Okay, for me, it looks like it's written back, all the words are backwards. Anyway, this is a document from 2017, and it is a plan. So it goes through these environmental sectors and says, in a nutshell, this is where we stand on it. This has been the trend based on what we have learned off of these. And so we need to make goals. We need to set goals on how to make this better. And so this is already a little bit out of date. This will be a much easier task than tackling the whole Becky report. So, we might want to squeeze that in first, since it'll be an easier task. We don't have to really rewrite the whole thing. We just have to go back and look at the goals and policies and see, is this still a reasonable goal? Should the city be thinking about, X percentage of CO2 output by such and such date? Should we change that number? Should we, what could we update here? So the question is, do we do them together? Do we do them separately? How do you want to go about it? Don't everybody speak at once.
So I actually have a question. So with the climate action plan coming out, I'm curious if a lot of the BEEP and the Becky are going to have like repetitive information in it if we update it.
Mhm.
If we take the same format as it was done before, and whether or not it's worth it to try to eliminate some of the sections because the climate action plan is covering it in their new report coming out soon.
That's a really good question. The Environmental Commission made this environmental action plan, and shortly thereafter, one of the departments in the city created a sustainability action plan, which almost mirrors this. The big difference is the city has adopted this sustainability action plan, and they never really embraced the environmental action plan as much. So that is a valid question. I don't think it's necessarily a valid question when it comes to the environmental quality indicators, because that is us doing research and providing the information that both the sustainability action plan and the environmental action plan would need in order to come up with their goals. But that is an absolutely valid question. We should really compare the goals in this and to the goals in the sustainability action plan.
Mm.
And now we have a climate action plan in draft. So we've got all these plans out there, and they don't necessarily all have the same goals. So that's another question for you guys to answer.
I guess to me, it would seem to
You're breaking up, Don. We can't hardly,
both
we
be
can't
on the
understand
same
you.
page. Sorry. It seems to me that ideally we should be very similar in our language and what we're the goals that we're expressing. There should be coordination. So, is it clear or not?
Not very, but I think we got your point that we should all be on the same page.
That's
And I don't know that there's anybody that disagrees with that.
yeah.
Yes, Matt?
I guess I'll just say that I put the updating the Becky as my top vote. I thought that was something that, based on how outdated some of it is, and based on also the fact that it's measures, it's indicators, it's baselines, it's standards. That's something we could research, we could put together, and we could do right away. Whereas my interpretation of the BEEP was that it was mostly like, hey, here's the best data we have, and here's our 2020 goal. And my concern, and the reason that I voted considerably lower on the BEEP, was I was worried that we wouldn't have a lot of those answers yet. We wouldn't be able to see how we did. We might not have measures on air quality or water quality or anything else from 2020 just yet. So I would kind of want to push that one a little farther down the road as far as priority goes, because I think if we have more information, it'll be more useful in both our recapping it, like seeing how we did, and our posting kind of our next goal, whatever the target year would be.
I think that makes good sense, because if we're going to discuss the environmental quality indicators, we have to compare then and now. And are we improving? Are we doing worse? And without knowing that, how can we set a goal?
Because if I remember correctly, some of them in the BEEP, we had relatively recent data that we were going off of, but others, the closest you could get was 2014 or something that was, several years before the date that the document was actually released. So I remember reading it and, appreciating the targets for 2020, and some of them were fairly aggressive and whatnot, but I don't know if that information will be out there yet. So I think that would be a tougher document to get kind of like a tidy conclusion to an update on until we have more information, whereas the updating the Becky we could start on immediately without any such barriers.
Having seen a lot of plans end up gathering dust on the shelf, I think we really need to consider what the chances are that this would ever be implemented, the BEEP plan. For taking that on, the Becky plan is a very good one, the report, but it is very complicated and might not be realistic to expect to get it all done at once. Complicated is not the right word, it's voluminous.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any sense of
My question,
what
can we do anything with
council
respect to
and the
Lake
mayor?
Monroe? Yes? Can we do anything with respect to Lake Monroe?
Well, we can do some stuff with respect to Lake Monroe, because that's where we get our drinking water. I mean, it's in the county and not the city, but we certainly have a vested interest since that's where we get our potable water. But that falls under the category of drinking water, not necessarily so much surface water, but and not sanitary, but yeah, we can certainly take up Lake Monroe, and I think it has been in all of these previous ones.
I see. Well, none of its watershed is in the city, it turns out.
Mm-hmm.
The watershed does not include any of the city of Bloomington.
Right. So we have our hands tied pretty much.
How much could we realistically get done on the Becky in a reasonable amount of time?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that is actually a really good question. And part of the reason for that answer is because right now Ben's working on the connectivity plan. If we wanted to get more done on the Becky, we'd have to have, you know, more commissioners step up and we have to get the working groups back together. This can't all fall on Ben's shoulders. We will have to get the working groups back together regarding the topics. And, you know, it just depends on how much time the commissioners are willing actually to put in.
How did the has it been collected in the past? And
I'm
from
sorry,
whom?
Don, I didn't
Sorry.
understand that.
Where has this information come from in the past, and how hard is it to acquire it?
Well, the raw data comes from all over the place. Some of it's easy to acquire, like say the water section. It's easy because we get all the information from city utilities, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But you take CO2 emissions, for example, and try to figure out how much energy people used in their homes and buildings, and try to get that information from the power companies, or try to find out what the emissions were from vehicle miles traveled. That information is very hard to get accurate data for.
That's what I expect for that type of data.
Yeah.
I'm happy to. I know I'm just beginning, and I'd have to learn a lot to help. But I'm happy, Ben, to help volunteer some of my time for that initiative.
That's excellent. Thank you.
Same here.
Yeah, and I can do that as well.
Would it be worthwhile to ask commissioners, Linda, which sections they're most interested in working on, and then divide the commissioners into working groups based on that data?
Yes. And just as an aside, there's another intern in the department that I have working on the water section already. But he's just kind of gathering data right now and hasn't had any kind of guidance on how to go about any of this. And in the original documents, you know, there was plenty of information, but last time the water section was updated, it was very, very, very thorough. Hi, Didamia.
Hi. I didn't realize it started at 6.
Oh, yes. For everybody's information, we used to always start at 7.
Yeah, sorry. I won't make that mistake again.
But, you know, we need to figure out how much detail we want to go into. And maybe what you could do is go onto the city's website and look at an old BEEP, which is the whole document, and then look at the updated water section. And you can see what I mean about how different they are. And I'm not sure we really need to have all of the information regarding water that's in the update. But again, it would be nice if you guys went and looked at it and, you know, made the decision.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out the next best step. Would it be to send everyone an actual copy of the Becky via email, of course? Have them review it as much as they possibly can before our next meeting, and then have them come with an idea in mind of what sections they would like most to work on. And then if a lot of people want to work on water, for example, then they could go to the water working group. And if a lot of people want to work on habitat connectivity and that sort of thing, they can do biodiversity and so on and so forth. That way we have people because I think trying to update the entire document at once is a stretch. And I think the best way to start would be to start with what people are most interested in, try to get that done quickly. That way we have a basis and a framework to go forward on the other sections in the future. I think it's harder to develop a framework of how to work on a project if people aren't 100% invested in the project at that stage. So like when I was in school, for example, if we had a paper that had multiple sections, but we didn't know exactly how to work on how to frame the entire paper, we would start on the section that we interested us the most and we found the easiest. And then we were able to build the rest of the paper around that section, if that makes sense. And I think that might be a worthwhile goal and framework for this as well.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Yep. I can do that.
Okay. So Linda will send everyone a copy of the Becky. I think the BEEP will put on hold until we have the Becky sections completed because it'll be most easily updated once we have that data. Everyone, I think our homework for next commission meeting will be to read over as much of the Becky as you possibly can, and then have in mind when you come to the next meeting what sections you'd most like to work on updating, and then we can all come together and share our thoughts and then work on it together starting next meeting.
And
How
it's
long is it, Linda?
well, oops, sorry. Let's see. The last full one is 83 pages.
Okay.
And that includes maps.
Okay.
Maps and charts, you know, and things that are in the appendix. Now, if we were to write every section like the latest water update, it would be hundreds of pages long. But that one, a very, very thorough intern wrote that with just a lot of background on water and national and worldwide water that we probably don't necessarily need. It was a great report, but it was a kind of overkill for our needs.
I think 83 pages is manageable, and you don't have to read, I would say, the entire thing, because if you reach a section and you go, I really have no interest in working on this section right now, then I don't think it's worthwhile to force yourself to go through it until we know exactly what we're working on.
Right, and I also think it's not something that you have to read and memorize word for word. I mean, it's kind of skim reading because we're going to redo it, you know? Look at it and see the sections, look at the sections and see if we need to make the, you know, different chapters having to do with the different topics of the environment. And look at the headings. You know, is this the format we want it to be in? Is this enough information? Is it too much information? You know, look at things like that, how it's built. You don't have to read everything and learn the, you know, the numbers in it. You don't really need to learn that data because it's obsolete now anyway.
Yeah. Good point. Do we have any questions for Linda on the Becky process? Okay. Seeing none, I guess we will move on with the agenda. Thank you, Linda. We'll get the Becky sent out to you all to read as soon as we can so that we can have enough time before our next meeting to go over it. And like I said, and Linda said, don't force yourself to go too in depth. Don't go crazy trying to get through it. We understand it's a specific type of reading for a specific type of mindset. And if you have to take breaks from it, don't worry about it. Don't feel too stressed about it. This isn't school. You don't have to cram before your next class. So we'll move on next to commissioner announcements. Do any commissioners have any announcements they wish to share with the group this evening?
I actually have a couple things this time.
Go ahead.
The first thing is that Mike, the guy up here in the corner and on my screen named Michael, has very generously offered to write a history of the EC. And so I took him 5 or 6 boxes of minutes.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, the EC, you newbies don't really know this, but it got started in August of 1971. So Mike's going to go through and, he's not going to write a book about it or anything, but he's going to write, a list, basically. I think the idea is basically bullet points and maybe a little description of the projects the EC's worked on all these years. So thank you, Mike. I so much appreciate that. It's words can't say. And the second thing I wanted to mention is that we had voted on and decided to hold the Eco Hero contest at the same time as we have the anniversary celebration. And that would be hopefully August 21st, because our birthday is on the 20th.
And Eco Heroes is an art contest we host with the local schools as well.
Usually we do it in the spring when it coincides with Earth Day, but we still won't be able to get together this April. So we decided to move it to August, and we'd have that along with our party. The problem is, if we have a party on the 21st, and we have the Eco Hero celebration on the 21st, the first day of school for MCCSC is August 4th. And that doesn't give them very much time. I don't know how much time it takes, and we are planning to send the information out at the end of this school year, because a number of teachers and schools and give out pseudo homework for the summer. And so some of the real artists could work on something over the summer. Some of the others would have a couple of weeks to do it, but in the past, a lot of the teachers for the lower grades have incorporated that in their lesson plans.
Right.
And we wouldn't have any assurance that they could include it in their lesson plans this early. So it's been suggested we have 2 separate events. And I personally am torn on it because I don't want to have 2 separate events, but it makes perfect sense that they won't, a lot of the school children won't really have time to get it done. So I wanted to revisit with you all the date. And do you still want to have it regardless? on the 21st when we have our party, or would you rather have the party on the 21st and then move Eco Heroes back later in the semester? You guys talk about it.
Does anybody know when Lotus is?
Lotus, no.
It's late September.
Yeah. I mean, this might be something that we could coordinate with Lotus.
September 23rd to 26th.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that brought me back to the EC was Eco Heroes, actually, because I think it's an important, I think it could be a really good thing for the community. The last time we did it, when I was involved, we extended the competition to adults as well as students. And we didn't get, I think we got, what, 5 entries, right, Linda? But
Something like that.
Some of them were really nice, and they of course were judged in a separate category, so it wasn't a matter of demoralizing second graders or anything. But maybe we could work something out with Lotus where they would display the projects, you know, in some of their venues or something. I don't know. That way we could sort of piggyback on somebody else's party.
Other thoughts?
I can see there's rampant controversy here.
Well, there is in my head, because I see the benefit both ways, and the cons both ways.
And I think I sort of come down on trying to maximize participation. So giving the schools more of a heads up, more time to prepare might result in more participation. I don't know.
Well, I'm sure that's true.
Yeah.
You know, whether we can spread ourselves thin enough to have 2 events, because it's hard enough to have 1 event, but I definitely think we'll have better participation if we scoot it back in the school year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did we already agree on the theme that we had to abandon the first time thanks to COVID?
Well, yes, we did. Of course, we haven't sent anything out on it yet because we're waiting for a date. You know, so just like the date, that could change here at the last minute also. But yes, we had.
Okay, that's good. I like the theme. I just wondered if the fact that we're already ready and that we already practically have brochures, it's just tiny details you might need to work out, might put us in a good place when it comes to if we did push the Eco Heroes back to, say, late September or something. The teachers could start on it right away if they know everything well before school starts.
The other thing is that I think the person who's most in danger of being spread too thin is Linda. You know, and if we have people who are willing to assist, if they're going to be 2 events, I mean, I've already pledged to help with Eco Heroes. And if there's somebody who's willing to, you know, carry some of the burden for the anniversary party, that would take some of the load off of Linda, because she ends up being the one who has to do everything. And, you know, we can and should help with that.
Good point.
Yeah, I agree. Linda is the most at risk for being spread too thin. I know Eco Heroes, when we did it the year before last, took a lot out of her. She was very tired at the end of the day. So I don't want to do anything that would cause Linda to have to do anything, have too quick of a turnaround time, you know what I mean? But that might also speak in favor of having our anniversary event in August and then having Eco Heroes a month later. in that she wouldn't have to do too much at once.
You could sleep in between.
I appreciate that.
Enough time for a nap. Yeah, I think I agree with tilting in the favor of participation. I would hate to have an event where we only get a handful of submissions because people didn't have enough time to get them in. Our anniversary party, we could either have that in August, or we could also postpone that an additional month and have it at the same time. But I would leave that up to Linda and how much she wants to take on at once and what she prefers, since a lot of the heavy lifting will be done by her just by the nature of how this usually goes.
Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, I wanted to have a really big splash for the anniversary, which is why I wanted to have it together so it could be a big splash. And, you know, I guess I had my mindset on the 21st because our anniversary is on the 20th, but there's no reason really it has to be that close to the actual date.
Yeah. So are you proposing that we move the anniversary up to the end of September also?
Well, maybe, why not?
Right.
It could just be our 50th anniversary year.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's up to you guys, but I mean, I never send a birthday card on time.
And I never get baby quilts made on time.
But this would be before Lotus, right? So that we talked about displaying stuff at Lotus, we'd have to do this before.
Well, the thing is if we, you know, if we're going to do the anniversary and Eco Heroes together, then I think partnering with Lotus would take some of the attention away from the EC. So maybe if we partner the both events, maybe we should stake out a different weekend.
Do it the week before, maybe.
Yeah.
Which would be
I suggest add something to this. Also, by delaying a month may give us more time for clarity with issues related to COVID restrictions.
Yeah.
We could do it the same week as Lotus, just early in the week. Since Lotus is at the end of the week, we could do it on Monday or Tuesday, which would be the 20th and 21st, which would just be a month after our anniversary.
Well, haven't we usually had the ceremony on a Saturday, Linda?
Oh, that's right. We usually have it on a Saturday.
Because the students and their parents they're not all able to come.
No. And if we have, for the party, if we have some speakers, et cetera, jugglers, whatever we wind up having, I think we should plan on a Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah. I want acrobats with big sticks.
That'd be great.
I prefer fire breathers myself, but
well, they could be fire breathing acrobats on long sticks.
There you go.
Yeah.
LED sticks.
Well, Lotus had, this was like maybe 10 years ago, they had some people on, like, I think they were 25-foot poles and they were dancing around on them. Did you see that? No? It was astonishing.
They had a marching band with stilts, with some of the people on stilts. It was pretty impressive.
So I think we're in general agreement that we will push back until September. Probably the weekend before Lotus, which would be, that Saturday would be the 18th.
And when does school start?
August 4th.
Okay, so that'll give the students lots of time, but I think getting the literature out early is a good idea because that will give the teachers, you know, I know as a retired teacher that you need some time to put your lesson plans together, and so somebody coming up the 1st of September with an idea, it's really hard to incorporate into your work. But if you have the summer to think it over, then you can plan a unit around it, and that's much more successful.
Right. right? That's
And
what
what
we
is the
usually do when we contact them at the beginning of, we contact them at the beginning of second semester and then have the
Yeah.
ceremony at the end.
Yeah. So have you drummed up people to help with the party?
No, not yet.
Okay. Looks like a lot of guys on this screen.
They're all
Um,
about parties. They're all party planners.
I can throw a good shindig, but I'm not gonna toot my own horn too hard. But I do. We do need to start getting people on. First, I think we need to plan exactly what we're gonna do. Do we plan this? Imagine this being, you know, a 1-day, multi-hour long event. Do we plan on it being multiple little things? You know, what's the format that we hope to have? Because one of the things I was thinking of that could be cool, I won't say cool, I'll say that could be relevant, would be a panel of some sort of relevant individuals from Bloomington that are involved in environmental activism and environmental restoration. You know, getting them on a stage together to discuss Bloomington, you know, environmental history and environmental future could be, you know, one good aspect to a celebration of our 50th anniversary.
Yeah. And we
but
also
for-
need to nail down venues.
Yeah, and then we have to nail down venues and that sort of thing, and have a backup plan in case it needs to be virtual.
Yeah.
But we also have to think of what we want to do in conjunction with that, because I don't think we just want our entire celebration just be a panel. I think we want to have something else built
Here's
around.
what I propose. I propose that we, you, since you're president, find out who is willing to help with this effort, and that those people get together and rough out a plan to bring to the EC next month.
Okay. That could be the outreach working group. We could reestablish that and have them take over central planning. I'll reach out to everybody via email and have them sign up for that.
Yeah.
If they so choose. With heavy encouragement that people do get involved, because if we all get involved, it'll be very light lifting. If only half of us get involved, it'll be significantly heavier lifting.
That's right.
So I encourage everyone to get involved in some aspect, even if you can't be there the day of, you know, helping us do things like, you know, schedule venues, design and edit brochures, that sort of thing ahead of time really helps lift the load off Linda's shoulders and off of the fellow commissioners as well. So
Ben sent out a list of ideas of things to do. And Ben, would you please resend that to everybody, including our newbies?
Yeah.
And, you know, people add on to it, make a comment that you think it's, you know, so-and-so is a bad idea, or such and such is a good idea, or you've got another idea, you know, and so he's already got a list started of activities. So let's run with that and keep working on that.
Good.
Okay.
Good.
I'll send that email out after our meeting. Yeah, because in Eco Heroes in the past, usually Eco Heroes has been handled by mainly Linda, and then a couple commissioners will assist the day of, including myself, because I IMC the event. But it is the anniversary party will add significantly more to do, I think. So we'll have to have people really step forward on this. And think of it as fun work. You know, mostly a lot of the work on the EC is, you know, reviewing reports and producing, you know, data and that sort of thing, which is exciting in its own right. But rarely do we get to do large scale events celebrating ourselves and our accomplishments. So this is something that I think is a unique opportunity for us to really get involved in, you know, letting people know we're here and we're fighting for our environment day in and day out. And I think it's a good opportunity for us to get a lot of outreach with the public. Are there any further comments, questions, concerns on the anniversary or Eco Heroes? Any questions? Anything of that nature?
I do really like the idea of one big party, and if that weekend's a good weekend, cool.
Wonderful. All right. Any further announcements from you, Linda? That was the longest announcement in the history of announcements in the EC.
No, actually, it isn't.
Do we have any further announcements from any other commissioners this evening? All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we are adjourned. It is 7:29 p.m. Thank you all this evening for coming and being involved, and we'll see you next month.